In 2014, PlayStation 4 owners could download a free horror demo called PT. It looked small, one hallway, one house, one looping nightmare. Then players solved its secrets and discovered it was secretly announcing Silent Hills, a new game from Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. Months later, Konami canceled the project and removed PT from the store. A free demo became legally unreachable. What was inside it that made its deletion feel like a cultural crime? At Gamescom 2014, Sony's press conference included a tiny announcement that looked almost disposable. There was no famous director on the page, no major publisher branding, and no obvious connection to Silent Hill. The developer name made it stranger, 7780 Studio. It sounded like a small independent team, but it was a mask. The number was a clue. The fake studio was hiding the answer in plain sight. Once downloaded, PT gave players almost nothing. You woke in a room, opened a door, and entered an ordinary hallway. Then the hallway repeated. Each loop changed something small: a radio broadcast, a locked bathroom, a swinging light, a shape at the end of the corridor. The house followed dream logic, where progress depended on noticing details the game never explained. That turned the demo into a shared investigation. Players paused footage, compared theories, decoded sounds, and tested impossible rituals. They were not only trying to escape the hallway, they were trying to identify the hands behind it. The final puzzle pushed the entire internet into the same hallway. Players had reached what looked like the end, but the phone would not ring, the door would not open, and the demo refused to explain what it wanted. The solution became a global experiment. People tried walking exact routes, staring at specific objects, wading through radio messages, speaking into microphones, and triggering the baby's laugh at precise moments. Forums, live stream chats, and social media filled with instructions that sounded like urban legends because the game was built to make logic feel unreliable. Eventually, players found the sequence. After hearing the baby laugh, standing still, using the microphone, and waiting for the second laugh, the phone rang. Then the locked front door finally opened. Outside was not an escape from PT, it was the reveal. The camera followed a man walking through a foggy street, and when he turned, players saw Norman Reedus. Then the credits appeared. Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro. The title came next, and it changed everything. Ha! Silent Hills. In seconds, PT stopped being a strange free demo and became the announcement of a new Silent Hill. The people behind it made the news feel impossible. Kojima brought cinematic direction and game design built around manipulation and mystery. Del Toro brought a career filled with monsters, fairy tales, and human horror. Reedus gave the project a recognizable face and a physical presence. Later, fans learned Junji Ito had also been involved, adding one of horror manga's most disturbing imaginations to the group. For Silent Hill fans, it looked like a once-in-a-lifetime alignment, a dead franchise revived by artists who understood dread, bodies, guilt, and nightmares. That is why the reveal broke the internet. It promised the horror game everyone suddenly needed to exist. PT felt like the future of horror because it proved how little a game needed to terrify people. It had one hallway, one bathroom, one locked door, and almost no mechanics. The player could walk, zoom in, and listen. That was enough. The genius was repetition. Every loop returned you to the same space, but the space never stayed trustworthy. A door cracked open, a light changed, a photograph gained a message, the bathroom became accessible, the radio shifted from background noise into a threat. Because the hallway was familiar, every small difference felt intentional, and players started scanning the walls like evidence at a crime scene. PT also removed the usual comfort of horror games. There were no weapons, no health bar, no map, and no clear objective marker. You could not fight Lisa. You could not outrun the story. You could only move forward, listen, and hope the next loop did not punish you for missing something. Lisa worked because she was not treated like a normal enemy. Sometimes she appeared at the end of the hall. Sometimes she was behind you. Sometimes you only heard her breathing, crying, or footsteps. The game made sound feel physical, as if the room itself was telling you she was close before your eyes could confirm it. The radio broadcasts and environmental details turned the house into a crime scene. Mentions of family murder, the fetus in the sink, the bloody refrigerator, and the changing messages on the walls suggested a story without fully explaining it. PT trusted players to assemble dread from fragments. That restraint is why the teaser became legendary. If a short loop could create that much fear, then a full Silent Hills looked capable of changing horror games completely. By early 2015, the fear around Silent Hills was no longer inside the game. It was inside Konami. The first warning signs appeared around Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Fans noticed that Hideo Kojima's name and the Kojima Productions logo were being removed from official marketing materials and websites. For a creator whose name had been tied to Metal Gear for decades, that was not a small design change. It looked like a public erasure. Then Konami began restructuring. Kojima Productions was reportedly folded more tightly into Konami's corporate system, and employees were described less like an independent studio and more like contractors within the company. Reports from the time suggested that Kojima's team had restricted access to email, phone lines, and even promotional channels channels as the relationship deteriorated. The exact breaking point has never been fully confirmed by both sides in one clean statement. What was reported was a mix of budget pressure, creative control issues, and Konami's changing priorities. Kojima's games were expensive, cinematic, and slow to make. Konami was increasingly looking toward mobile games, pachinko, and lower-risk business models instead of massive console productions. That made Silent Hills vulnerable. It was not just another horror sequel. It was a project tied to Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, Norman Reedus, and the kind of prestige console development Konami seemed less eager to support. At first, fans tried to separate the problems. Maybe Metal Gear was the only issue. Maybe Silent Hills was safe because PT had been such a phenomenon. Then the pattern became harder to ignore. Kojima's name vanished. Konami stayed quiet. Rumors kept spreading. The most anticipated horror game in years was suddenly caught in a corporate breakup it could not survive. Then, in April 2015, the uncertainty ended. Guillermo del Toro publicly said Silent Hills was not going to happen, and Norman Reedus followed by saying he was super bummed about it. Konami later confirmed the project had been cancelled, while also insisting the Silent Hill series itself was not dead. For fans, that distinction barely mattered. The specific game they had seen, the one promised by PT, Kojima, del Toro, and Reedus, was gone. Then Konami made the decision that turned disappointment into outrage. On April 29, 2015, PT was removed from the PlayStation Store. That meant new players could no longer download it. A free teaser that had become one of the most discussed horror experiences of the decade was simply pulled from public access. The cancellation of Silent Hills meant fans lost the future. The deletion of PT meant they lost the proof that future had existed. Installed copies still survived on PlayStation 4 consoles that already had the game downloaded. Those machines suddenly became collector items, with listings appearing online at inflated prices because they contained something Konami no longer allowed people to get. PT was no longer just a demo. It became a trapped artifact, locked to aging hardware and dependent on whether the owner knew not to delete it. That was the key injustice. Fans were not only denied a game that had not been finished, they were denied continued access to the one playable piece that was finished. Konami did not just cancel Silent Hills. It erased the doorway that had made people believe in it. What Konami could not delete was the design language PT left behind. After 2015, first-person horror changed. Developers had seen how much fear could come from one hallway, one locked door, and one ordinary house that refused to behave like a real place. PT made the domestic space feel hostile. A radio, a bathroom, a family photograph, and a repeating corridor became tools for psychological pressure instead of background detail. Its influence appeared everywhere. Horror games leaned harder into looping architecture, cryptic triggers, unreliable spaces, and the feeling of being trapped without a weapon. The player was not a soldier clearing rooms. The player was vulnerable, confused, and forced to study tiny changes in a familiar environment. That became one of the clearest fingerprints of PT. A wave of spiritual successors followed. Games like Layers of Fear, Visage, Allison Road, and countless independent projects borrowed pieces of its format, from the repeating house structure to the slow unraveling of a family tragedy. Some were tributes, some were attempts to build the full game fans believed Silent Hills might have become. Fans also tried to preserve PT directly. Remakes, recreations, and playable homages appeared on personal computers, often made by people who simply wanted others to experience what had been removed. Many of those projects were hit with legal pressure or taken down, which only made the original feel more unreachable. The people behind Silent Hills never truly reunited for that game. Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Norman Reedus eventually collaborated again through Death Stranding, but it was not the horror project fans had imagined. That is the strange afterlife of PT. Most players can no longer download it, yet its ideas are everywhere. It became more powerful as a legend because the original experience was taken away. Silent Hills was not just cancelled, it was sealed off, delisted, and reduced to footage, memories, and a few PlayStation consoles still carrying PT like a museum piece. Konami did not only lose a game, it erased a cultural artifact. Thank you for watching. Comment below, should PT be preserved, and what cancelled game still haunts you?